I feel that Roots Personal Finance is going to be one of the best memberships out there to help you become completely debt free. And that's what we're here to celebrate tonight. So with that said, I want to introduce Amber and Paul Taylor. Now, Amber and Paul Taylor have been Roots Personal Finance members since we originally opened up our doors. And I talk about this like it was so long ago.
It feels like it was yesterday.
I know, right? It really, really does. It really does. And I just think about all the amazing stories and all the stuff that people have been able to do after going through Roots and being in Roots. It feels like it was a long time ago because we've had a lot of people come through.
21 months.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost 2 years, but you guys joined right when we opened, and it's been awesome to see your success. So I'm excited that you guys have been able to join us. How are you guys?
We are wonderful. I'm wonderful. I don't know about him, but
tired. It's been a busy 2 days at work.
I feel you. I feel on the tiredness. I feel you. So talk to us a little bit. We're going to go through some of these questions here tonight. And when we have Roots Personal Finance members, we're going to go through some common things. And the first one is, and Amber, I'm hoping you're going to mention it, and Paul, maybe you felt the same way, but what was life like before you joined Roots, before you even heard about it? And then share a little bit your feelings when you actually heard about it and maybe some of that hesitation that you had. How was that all about?
Well, before we started, I don't know, we were just doing whatever. We were being spontaneous.
Getting by. Yeah.
It felt like we were living paycheck to paycheck, and we weren't getting ahead, and we were, if anything were to come up, we would have been up. Yeah.
And anything
not a good place.
You can say it. It's okay.
And before we joined, I was skeptical. I was like, I don't know, this is crazy. I gotta pay money for somebody to tell me what to do with my money. This is not okay. But I took a leap of faith. I came home from conference, and Lee had told me about it. I hadn't even seen you talk. And I came home, and but we came home, we talked about it. I was like, should we do this? And what was your answer?
If you want to.
It's always the answer. If you want to.
Yeah. What? I got faith. I got faith in her ability to choose things.
So tell me a little bit. So even before so obviously things weren't great, but did you feel any pain, or did you just kind of think like the way you were handling money was normal? Like, hey, this is just going to kind of be how it is. Like, was there any like real indications of, we really need to kind of start paying attention to some of this stuff? Or was it just kind of like, whatever,
You know what, to be honest with you, we had been told this, I don't know how many years ago, about how to do this snowball thing. And it was a guy at a bank that told us about it, because I think we went in for a loan and we got declined. And he suggested the snowball thing. And he actually gave me a spreadsheet and to do this snowball thing. I was like, okay, yeah, I can see that. And I totally grasped it. Did I go home and implement it? No. And like we tried, we got consolidation loans. That didn't help. So I just assumed, this is life, and people struggle, and that's how money is, and it sucks. But that's just how it's going to be, and we're always going to be broke.
When we pretty much right after we met, we were discussing and started getting serious about the relationship. She was doing her banking and stuff like that, and made her comment that you hear from so many people about, well, there's my student loans. It's going to be $200 a month. Get used to it. It's just a fact of life that'll be there till, and it was basically forever that we anticipated it being there for. So
that
was what we expected. It's
right. Well, and I'm glad you guys are very transparent about it too, because I think that's how a lot of people are. It's how I used to be too. I mean, I didn't really, was it fun living paycheck to paycheck? Was it fun being broke? No, but you also didn't really know any other way. You didn't know there was a different way to do it. You didn't know there was a different life out there you could have if you just handled your money just a little bit different.
Well, right, because for us, it was never a matter of not having money. It was just we took the money to do the things we wanted, and the things that we had to do, again, were just kind of there. So we take money from this thing to pay for this thing, and next thing you know, it's a bunch of debt. And how do you get out of it?
Yeah. Right. Right. So Lee talks you into this, Amber, and Amber, Paul just says, "Yep, let's do it." So you start Roots, and what things did you start learning early on, like the two of you? And we're going to talk a little bit about live meetups here, but Paul, you were kind of full in on this from the get go for the most part. I mean, you were very involved and regular attendee of the live meetups and things. But what types of things did you guys start learning early on in the membership? As you started going through that, started to like really kind of click, like, you were a little hesitant at first, a little skeptical, but then all of a sudden it's like, like what light bulb went off for you that really started to like put these things in motion for you?
For me, it was a snowball, because almost instantly you could see how fast stuff can happen. And I mean, that was basically what did it for me. Because as soon as I started seeing, okay, well, we've actually got this much money instead of this little money between paychecks, then it's like, well, wait a second. So if we take that, we can do this, and the rest is history on that.
Behavior. I think the behavior lesson.
Big, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And we still slip up. Like last month was horrendous. But we know it though. We know exactly where we slipped up. So we know how to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're paying attention. And I'm glad you mentioned, because me and you were messaging back and forth. I said, hey, we had a rough May too. And we did. It was rough. That behavior kind of kicked in for us too. But it's like you just said, we knew exactly what happened and what went wrong, so we could easily go back and fix it in June. So, but it's an ongoing battle, isn't it? It's like something that you just, you guys have been debt free now for a little over a month. It's not something like, oh, we're done now. We don't have to pay attention to this stuff anymore, right?
Yeah. As soon as we stopped paying attention, that's what happened. Was right back into the things we used to do, because when you look at it, it all came down to eating out and food.
Yeah.
We went so far over budget between eating out and food just from the day to day because of how busy we usually are, that it was like, holy crap, what happened?
Yeah, right. So obviously, Paul, you said, it was the debt snowball for you. Amber, you said it was more behavior stuff, but that got you started. But was there a moment where the two of you kind of realized, like, hey, we could actually do this. Like, we could actually pay off all of our debt and become completely debt free? Because you guys started having some success pretty early on. I mean, you built your emergency fund within the first 30 days. You were starting to pay off 2-3, different debts by the time I think Christmas rolled around, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, you guys were really kind of moving along. At what point did you guys really kind of think like, hey, we could really kind of completely finish this whole thing?
I think it was like a few months into it. Like, I feel like once we started budgeting and seeing, like we gave ourselves a pay raise. So once we saw that we actually had money, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe we can do this. And then, sorry, it's just, it's my house. That's just what's going to happen. But, and then we saw like paying things off, like things were getting paid off. And I think we paid off a couple things really fast because they were small. And that's when we really got momentum.
Yeah.
And then for me, I think the biggest eye opener was at Christmas, when enough of our behaviors had changed that when we went through Christmas, instead of doing what we always did, which is the big normal thing of buy everybody the biggest things and so on, we actually went into Christmas with a really small budget and stuck to it. And that was where it's like, well, wait a second. Okay, we managed to change our behaviors enough that we got through the biggest celebration in Canada in the year, and most expensive one also, without even feeling a pinch.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a big time of the year for a lot of people, and that's where a lot of people go into debt, and a lot of people typically will pay on that debt till about this time of the year, which we're in June right now. And people are still paying on debt from the holidays from 6 months ago. So that's a huge change in how you're managing your money. Now, Amber, you already kind of mentioned this a little bit about giving yourself a pay raise. And I remember you saying that, and it's honestly a quote that I use on our website. It's a quote that I use in our sales pages because it's so true. But you actually both kind of felt like once we got on a plan with our money, once we started to budget, once we started to figure out what our needs and our wants were and where we wanted to direct our money to, you actually said it felt like we could do more of what we wanted to do, right? I mean, was that kind of like an immediate thing you felt in the first, did that take a while, or was that like immediate, like in the first few months of joining?
Well, the first few months, I think we were really strict on our budget, and we would we're paying this off, and we had a plan to pay it off within a year. And we could have, but we also wanted to
the
travel and enjoy stuff. And, so we took a little extra time, but we saw that when we did our budget, we had more money at the end of the month, and we were like, oh, wow, where did this come from?
It's literally gotten to the point where most months it's like, as the months progressing, we're like forgetting when my paydays are.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you get paid this week, last week, like, when is it? And it doesn't really matter, because when we need something from the budget, it's already there. It's already set aside. So
yeah, so true. That forgetting of the payday. Same thing happened to me as well. And now I run my own business, so I have to remember that it's payday. Otherwise, we don't get paid. The money's not there. But I remember working, and when we became debt free, it was a couple years I was still working that job, and I remember those days where I would count on those paydays and counting them, the dates, when's that next bill. But once I became debt free, I didn't have to do that anymore. And there, like you, Paul, like you said, I would just forget that I would get paid. And then all of a sudden, several days later, I'd be like, oh yeah, it was payday. That's why I got all this money in here, because everything's just automatically taken care of when you got a plan and you got a budget. So talk a little bit about, we talk a lot about why or purpose. And, we just mentioned our new Debt Freedom Success Path and these trackers that we're talking about, and why or purpose is going to be a big part of those. And what's your guys' why or purpose? What was that thing you put on your vision board of, why do we want to do this, and why is this important to us?
One of the biggest goals we have is to buy a house. So we couldn't do that with a ton of debt and rightfully go into a house and not worry about if something broke down. So that was one of the biggest things for me, and that we're still working towards it. It's in the background. But we are...
You're coloring it in, though. It looks very nice.
Right?
It's getting there.
But that was one of the big motivations for me, is I didn't want to keep renting. We rent off of his dad, and I just feel like a burden, and I didn't want to keep doing that. So I wanted our own place, and that was my huge motivation.
Yeah.
Family is probably my biggest motivation. A lot of what you taught us helped us to get stuff into position. Like, we've got our life insurance, we've got all the basics that we need. Our wills are in place now. And being older than Amber and knowing that the work that I do is pretty rough on me and stuff like that, and there are always the potentials for accidents, it's nice knowing, and that's a big part of it for me, is knowing that no matter what happens to me today, tomorrow, the next day, everybody that I care about is taken care of.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing for me.
That's awesome. Yep. And not only do you got that life insurance, but everyone's taken care of because of something that has happened to either of you. You're not leaving each other with a mountain of pain and challenges of trying to figure out how you're going to pay debt and all that stuff off. You've really taken care of, your whole entire family. It's awesome. And it's very admirable too. Very admirable. It's awesome that you guys have been able to do that. So when you guys first joined, and I mentioned this, Amber, you were a regular part of the live meetups. Paul, you joined a lot. And in fact, you were one of the very few, men who would jump on. We had some originally that would jump on occasionally. We still have some. Why were those important, especially as you first started? What did those live meetups do for you? And why did you make it a point to be at as many of those as you could? Because back in the day when you guys joined, we did like 3 of these a week. We did a lot of them. And there were some times where you were on more than one. So what did that do for you?
Me first? Okay. At first, it was really about learning a lot. Try and take in as much as I could, as quick as I could. But the reason I would come to like the 2 nights, obviously I couldn't come to the day ones, but during the night ones I would show up. That way there I could hear different sides, different opinions, and so on.
Yeah.
And it was very useful in that aspect. And then the accountability, because I mean, every week we were there, and even though it wasn't so much the celebrations like what they are now, everybody still talked about, okay, this is what I managed to accomplish, or this is what we managed to accomplish. And so the accountability was always there right from day one, because we got to know everybody else and everybody's sharing. So you get to know everybody and you feel for how they're doing and feel for them as people. And you do the same thing for the same reason.
Yeah, we want, like, the live meetups make you feel like you're not alone. Everybody's there. That we're all doing the same thing. Nobody's alone in this, and we just have each other's back. And we learned a lot from other people. So it's just awesome just hopping in on these. Yeah.
And I think, you know, and there's some satisfaction in the sense where, you know, you screw up. And I know that sounds bad, but you screw up, but you also see other people screwing up. So you don't feel as bad. Like, hey, screwing up is normal. We are going to screw up. It is going to happen. So, you know, don't beat yourself up. So as important as the accountability is when it comes to celebrations and seeing other people doing this, that gives you motivation to do it. But it's also important to see that, hey, we're human. And, you know, don't let one little failure keep you off your track and stop you from being successful, because we're all going to screw up. And we still do. We still do. So real quick, and I want to ask this question first before I get to this next one, is how much money were you guys able to save? And I know we've talked about this a lot, but I want you guys to tell everyone, how much money were you able to save, and how much were you able to pay off, and in what time period did you do that
in? It took us 20 months, and we saved $8,000, and we paid off $46,600.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. So my next question is how the heck were you able to do that? I mean, those are huge chunks of money. So what do you feel helped you out the most in order to pay off and save that kind of money in just 20 months? What were like the biggest things that really helped you along that way?
The accountability. I would say the accountability.
And focus. Definitely. For me, it was focus. It was, and I mean, as hard as we focused, we still slipped. That's why it went from being a year to pay it off to 20 months. But no matter what, it was always going back to the same focus and the accountability. Yeah,
right. So tell me, and I know we've talked about this on live meetups in the past, but I want you to share, because some people tend to forget about this. But talk to me a little bit how your friends and family kind of felt about this. I mean, you guys have gone through this, you've battled and you've struggled and you fought through this, and I've seen it and hear you guys talk about it when you were talking about when you were just kind of getting started and when you're kind of midway through. And now I've seen the response of now you've actually made it. And I see the people with the outpouring of support. What was that like? You know, what's been the experience of telling your friends and family about what you guys were trying to do and why you were trying to do it?
Well, when we first started and we were like super strict and we weren't eating out and we weren't going out anywhere. Like if it wasn't planned in the budget at the beginning of the month, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
I had a friend that basically was like, oh, that money thing. Oh, you can't come and do this because of that money thing. I was like, what the heck? You know? And still to this day, we were just out at the cottage and we were with my aunt and uncle. And still to this day, he's like, you know, you need to get a 30-year mortgage and just invest instead of paying your mortgage down. Like he's going on and on about the benefits of investing while having the small mortgage and a small payment on a mortgage for 30, 40, whatever years. And he's still to this day, like he doesn't get why I want a very small, short mortgage.
Yeah.
And he's taking his advice from his brother, who is a banker. So of course it's like, okay, well, it's a banker pushing exactly what they always have, which is, okay, keep paying us money. Like keep giving us your money.
Right.
We'll take it. And we'll charge you even more just to hold it for you. So
Right. So yeah, obviously getting advice from the bank. Yeah, having friends and family influenced by that, it's going to be a big change. And I remember, I think Amber, you were one that I had mentioned, you know, hey, watch out for friends and family when you're going through this. Don't be surprised if they're not going to be super supportive of you. And I think you were one that was like, eh. And then all of a sudden it started happening and you were kind of like, holy shit, like this is happening.
I honestly was like, I didn't think that people would react like that. I just thought, you know, they're going to be happy for me, whatever. This is awesome. I didn't think that I'd get the kind of reactions that I did. And it happened. It didn't happen like a whole lot, but it happened a few times where it took me back, and I was like, whoa.
It was just a couple people. It wasn't most people were really supportive of the whole idea.
Yeah, which is great. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then you'd have the couple that were just like, well, why would you do that? Why? Like, no, you need debt. You need to have credit cards. You have to have credit cards in order to buy anything you want. So, well, no, we're proving that you don't.
Yeah, right. So you guys have mentioned a little bit, what life was like before, but what's life like now? I mean, you guys have been debt-free for a month. How's life been? Has it sunk in yet? And what types of things are you guys looking for in the future? I mean, you hit this goal out of the park in 20 months. What types of things are Amber and Paul working on, and what does life look like now?
Well, short term is our 6-month emergency fund. We want to be able to afford that. And then the house. Then all of our focus is going on buying the house. We want to have our 20% down. That way we're not paying a bunch of extra fees and insurances and so on.
Yep.
But yeah, that's primarily it. Even traveling and all that is accounted into our daily budget. So
right.
It's a matter of getting the house that she wants.
So I don't think it's sunk in though. I don't think I don't know. Because I do most of the banking and stuff. But I don't think it's sunk in, to be honest with you.
Because that's what I was going to ask. Outside of the money, buying a house, saving up for the emergency fund, I mean, all of those things are going to be spectacular. And they're all going to help build on what you've currently done. But what does it feel like? Is, the stress is gone. There's no more worry. There's no more kind of what ifs. I mean, you have more direction. And if you want to do something, how does it feel to know that, hey, we're not paying anybody anymore and we can do whatever we want? How does that feel?
Incredible. Because now I'm going to start seeing it build up in our savings, right? So we went like half a month, basically. I haven't put anything else in there. But I feel like
it was funny because last month there was one day I got paid, and it was funny because I know how much is in the account, which is odd for me. I don't normally know exactly how much is in it, but when I do take the time to look, I'm like, oh, okay, well that's what's there, fine. And then she dumped $1,400 into savings, just done. $1,400 in savings. It's like, you did what? How did you do it? Oh wait, I guess that was what was budgeted. So whether it come out a couple times in the month or all at once, it made no difference. It was just kind of surprising to see all of a sudden just $1,400 right away go into our savings.
Yep.
So, I think once I see that start to build, it'll sink in more. Like once I see that I'm paying myself, because I still haven't really seen it. So I'm paying myself instead of paying other people.
Right. And that's the kind of the new line you crossed, because that's exactly what Paul said, is that $1,400 represents the money that you used to pay somebody else, and now you are paying yourself that every single month. And that's an amazing feeling. And you're right, Amber, it does take a little bit of time. And we talked a little bit about this when we were kind of going back and forth about feeling bad for how bad we budgeted in May. But I also mentioned to you, I said, as bad as I budgeted in some areas, and it was really just poor planning on my part, I also met all of our savings goals, which is paying yourself first. So as long as those things are met, some things didn't go so well, but hey, we paid ourselves. We invested. We did the things that we were supposed to do. And as long as you're doing that, that's what's important. And as bad of a month as you said you had, but you still were able to put that much money in savings. That's what you can do when you don't owe anybody anything. And that's awesome. Even your dogs think so.
They're celebrating too.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to set something up for you guys. I got a little surprise for both of you. And then obviously your last and final post that you guys had posted, it took us 20 months, but we have officially paid off $46,000 in debt and have $8,000 in savings. And you guys are absolutely debt free. So congratulations to you guys. You guys have done amazing. Lots of hard work, and truly you guys are an inspiration to all of our Roots Personal Finance members. So for those of you who are with us or maybe going to check this out in a recorded version of this live meetup, Paul and Amber are fabulous people. And it's been great to get to know them here in Roots Personal Finance, hang out with them on a personal level when we travel and things, but they're normal just like everybody else. And what they aren't normal with when it comes to their money is handling it. and they said no to debt, and they took their financial lives back, and you guys can do it too. And they are an absolute example of what it can look like when you put some hard work in. So congratulations to you guys. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. All right, let me stop sharing my screen here so we can get to some other celebrations.